Catherine, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I'm really excited to have you here. As mentioned before, this is the first time I have somebody here who's going to talk to us about membership sites. And this is something really close to my heart as well, because I've got a membership site myself. So I'd love to hear what you've got to talk to us about today. But before we get started, why don't I hand over to you so you can introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to talk about this topic because I'm very passionate about this topic. But who I am and what I do, I'm the founder of Selling from the Heart. And at the core of what I do and have done for the past 8-9 years is I teach heart-centered business owners how to get more clients through teaching them how to have sales conversations that feel very authentic and comfortable and without being pushy. And for years, I've had an online program. And then from that, the membership Business from the Heart has developed as a way to give ongoing support beyond the sales conversation, so I can support people with their marketing, with their business models and their business growth more generally.
And I love that, because so much of what we do, especially as coaches, is obviously help people to get through that point of where they need to physically sell their products or their services. And there's always kind of going to be that point where people feel that they didn't know how to sell. And, you know, selling from the heart and selling authentically is really one of those things, the key things really, in order to do something genuinely, not just for you in order to survive as a business owner, but also for those who are investing in your products and services, because at the end of the day, they want to go through a transformation. That's why they're there, and that's why they want your products or services. So I love that you're coming from that point of selling authentically and from a heartfelt place. But with anything in life, this is not just something that happened for you overnight. There must have been some kind of starting point for you in your career, in your life, where you decided, you know, I'm going to do this full time. This is where my business is heading. Where did that start for you, and how did that journey evolve to where you are now?
Oh my goodness. Well, that journey for me was really long. And when I describe it, it sounds like it might have been a bit exciting, and it wasn't. It was really painful. So I used to work in sales in the corporate world. I worked in the city in London in recruitment, which is quite a cutthroat sort of area. And I was really highly successful. I'd also worked in the travel industry. I was always in the top 2 or 3 salespeople in the companies I worked with. And I was materially very successful. I was successful at work. I got well paid. I had nice homes, nice cars. But I felt really that my work was meaningless. And I felt this huge burning desire. I knew I was going to work for myself, and I knew that I wanted to help people, but that was all I knew. And I finally plucked up the courage to leave my job, and I ended up, over a 5-year period, I went seeking what this thing was that I was supposed to be doing. I ended up retraining as a hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, yoga teacher, meditation teacher, coach, nutritional therapist, and I also studied acupuncture and energy healing. And it didn't matter which one of these things I did. With a lot of them, I started out working with clients and would really quickly get this real sinking feeling like, oh my gosh, this still isn't it. And then what happened for me was I started to get known with the coaches and the nutritional therapists and the NLP practitioners that I trained with. They would start coming to me and say, Catherine, we hear you have all these clients. Like, we're struggling. How are you doing it? And I realized that this thing that had been common sense for me, because I'd had this 17-year experience in sales at that point, came so naturally to me that if somebody expressed an interest in working with me, we just had a conversation and off we went. And that people who are in the business of helping others, healers, coaches, transformational workers, really struggled with this whole concept of sales. And so I ended up running a one-day workshop called Sales Success for Coaches. 13 people came. I just didn't realize that anyone would appreciate what I taught, because to me it was so common sense. And that was the day that it all started, about eight years or so ago.
My goodness, I love your story. And in particular, I love the fact that you went through the stage of really trying to figure out what it is that you wanted to do. You know you wanted to do something, and that's for so many of us who goes into the entrepreneurial world. We know we want to do something, we just don't know what. Now, for so many, that's a stumbling block where they don't really take any action, but you really took action and you decided to go into all of these different fields and just figure out what is aligned with you. And then that led you to you having a workshop and decided, oh my gosh, actually the strength I've had in me and the knowledge I've had through all of these years, that is something that I can bring forward. And that's how, you know, everything started developing for you. So I absolutely love your story. And it's so heartfelt as well, because it's genuine.
And it just all came together beautifully, because once it became clear this is what I was here to do, I realized, oh my gosh, that journey, it wasn't wasted. I understand what the Reiki practitioners are doing. I understand the nutritional therapist's business. I understand the hypnotherapist business because I've been there, I've trained in it. I understand the challenges of filling a yoga class. And it all sort of came together perfectly in that way. And of course, then because I then grew my business teaching sales and sales conversations in an authentic way, I then had that experience in growing my own business. I developed online programs. I ran a high-end mentoring program, and I became an expert in mentoring other people to grow their businesses through my own journey. So it all followed on.
My goodness, that is fascinating. I love hearing that. And that kind of transformed now into your membership site as well. And that's what I would like to talk about. So let's dive into memberships. And I think the one thing that really fascinated me was when you and I started talking is you said that when you had your membership, or when you started your membership, you were very well known for having a 95% retention rate. Talk to us a little bit about how you did it and how you got started really with the membership site.
So my membership it's 2 and a bit years old. So really it started in January 2018. And, you know, we're going to be, probably by the time anyone's listening to this, it's probably going to be about 2.5 years after that. And when I did my stats for last year, for 2019, my average monthly retention rate over the entire year on average worked out at 96%. Now, a good membership retention rate is 90%.
Wow.
And so it's well above industry averages, which was just amazing. And how I got started. So did you say how did I get started, as well as having
yes, if you can share with us how you got started, because I think that is also fascinating for the audience to hear how you really took that first step into a membership site.
So it wasn't early in my business, and actually I didn't go into business with the dream of a membership site. It wasn't really on my radar. I had a bit of a blind spot, really, as in, oh, that's something that's not for me. I don't think I would ever be able to grow my audience enough to make a membership work. I think those are the sort of things that I believed. I didn't really consider it. And what I did was I did what so many of us do when I started out in business, which is I realized quite quickly that I couldn't figure it out on my own. And I started investing in mentoring, which I believe is a good decision. But the problem is that when we do that, what happened to me and what I see happens to so many others is that they find someone else who's been successful, and then they follow their cookie cutter model without stopping to consider, is this absolutely right for me? And I actually, my earliest 2 business mentors both said to me, if you want your business to be successful, you need a high-end offer, like a high-ticket offer. So my business model ended up being an 8-week online program with a live event included as a bonus. And at the live event, I sold a high-ticket program that ranged between 5,000 and 10,000 a year. And I ran that successfully for a number of years. I had a stupendously high success rate from the work I did with those women. It was very close-knit. I loved them to bits. It was successful financially. It was a 6-figure plus revenue on its own. The results I got were a success. And it also, as time went on, it felt heavier and heavier. And what it was for me is that it wasn't really aligned with who I am and what I'm here to do in the world, because I feel really called to make my work available to as many people as possible. I'm a real one-to-many person. I want to reach a lot of people. But by pricing it at that level, I was limiting the numbers of people. And so many people in my audience, in my community, they either simply couldn't afford that level of business investment, or they could afford it, but they hadn't yet developed the mindset around investing in their business growth. And so they were left behind. And after running that for a few years, I made the decision to just stop running it. I ran the live event as usual, and I didn't offer that high end. But the membership still hadn't come to the surface for me. I still couldn't see that. And it was about 3 months after I'd given it up, and I was still feeling really uncertain about the future direction of my business. I was sort of asking myself, like, maybe this is it. Maybe my passion has run its course. Maybe, you know, I've done what I was here to do. And I was listening to a podcast interview between, it was actually Amy Porterfield interviewing the lady who ran Screw the 9 to 5, Jill Stanton.
Jill Stanton, yes.
Yes. And she talked about the membership and why they ran a membership. And it was like all of the light bulbs went off at once for me, because I realized it gave me two really important things that were crucially important to me. And I wasn't serving through the other thing I was doing. One was the ability to reach lots and lots of people and make my teaching and my work accessible to lots and lots of people at the same time. And the other was community. This being able to bring people together, and they could stay and be part of that community for as long as they wanted to. Whereas with the high-end program, people would typically, a lot of people would do a couple of years, but then they'd be like, I've got what I needed. I'm where I wanted to be. Thank you. And if they weren't paying me, they weren't part of it anymore. Yes. Same with my online program. As soon as they finished the 8 weeks, they weren't paying. It was finished. I wasn't helping them anymore. I couldn't. My business model wasn't designed to have me help people in an ongoing way. But I really felt I always felt quite a lot of pain when people finished my programs, because it's like, oh, you're going, we're not doing this anymore. And the membership fulfills that for me, because people can stay in it for as long as they're getting value.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you're saying that, in particularly how you kind of went through the motion again of thinking that is not for me, that is not really something I need. And maybe that was true at that moment in time, because you weren't ready to receive, virtually that opportunity. But then when you listened into that podcast between Amy and Jill Stanton, that was the moment where you just had kind of like the light bulb moment. But that's where you realize that, okay, this makes sense now. This is what I should do. Let's quickly move over to how you manage to keep the retention rate at about 96%, which you said is above the average.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, actually. And I feel so blessed that is the outcome. I almost feel like I can't really take credit for it in some ways, because the membership is a really special place, but it's the members that make it so. And I think that one of the key things that was a sort of a part of the reason that the retention is so high is that right from the very beginning, I already mentioned community as being an important factor behind setting it up. I was very clear from the very beginning that I wanted it to be a community-based membership, not like an information-based membership site where people just log into a site and get some information. It's actually the membership site aspect of my membership is only really a third of it. So it's made up of two. There's like we've got the community element, and then there's the training element that sits inside the membership site, so the website part. And then we've got the member live events that all take place via Zoom. And because I very, very consciously created it to be a community, and in fact in the first 18 months I actually called it community in the name, but I changed that because the members didn't respond quite so well to that. It's a very supportive place, and it's not guru led. People are not hanging out there just because they're waiting for me to show up and answer all their questions. They're supporting each other, and there's a huge wealth of experience, wisdom, knowledge, generosity, collaboration going on in there. And I think that really helps. That's one of the key things. And then other things is, no,
that's fascinating, because I've seen some membership sites as well where it's all just information based, which is maybe a good model for them. But that community, especially online, a community is so important, because you need that interaction, whether it's just online, like we're saying now, we're having a Zoom call as well, but that interaction is so key. And also the collaborations that is happening amongst the community is really, really important.
And so many of our members have actually built their teams out through other members, or they're running workshops with other members. There's been such a lot of that. And actually my own, I didn't, I got into memberships 2.5 years ago. I'd been in business quite a while before that, like about 6 years, wasn't on my radar. When I did decide, oh my gosh, this is the thing, this is it, I worked with Stu McLaren. He's very well known as being the memberships
tribes.
guy. Yeah, the tribe. And one of the things he says all of the time, and this is what really stuck with me, he said, your members, they join for your content, but they stay for your community. So all of the members think that they're joining because they want to get my trainings and they want to get my mentoring and advice. But actually, that's not enough of a glue to keep people. They stay long term because it becomes their family. They use that word, they describe it as a family. It's also still relatively small. So at the time that we're recording this, I've got about 270 members. That's actually small enough that it feels very close-knit and supportive and safe. I don't know whether I don't have any ambitions to grow it to the multi-thousands, because I don't believe it could be as special as it is now beyond a certain number.
That's amazing. And we earlier spoke about a good example, which is Carrie Green, the FEA, Female Entrepreneur Association. Yes. And I know that she's got a huge community there. I'm part of it as well. And that is a huge community. Yes. But again, her model and how she's doing things is a bit different from yours. And that's that's the good thing about memberships. You can literally do anything you want in order for it to be aligned with you. So you can really create that kind of structure. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. I want to ask you, because obviously starting a membership, there's some good parts and there's some bad parts. Well, not some bad parts, but I don't like using the word bad. I'd rather say that it's some challenging moments.
Yes, some surprisingly challenging things about running a membership.
So talk to us from your experience. What was the best parts when you started the membership, and obviously how that's developed now, but also what were the challenging parts for you?
Okay, so the best part, I'm glad you asked me that, because this actually really surprised me. Because as I said, I was drawn to set up a membership because of the ability to serve and help more people and to create this community. But when I started, one of the big buzzes that you always hear around memberships is recurring revenue. And I was like, yeah, recurring revenue, yada, yada. Revenue's not really been a problem. My background is in sales. I understand marketing. The revenue side of my business was never a particular challenge for me. However, oh my goodness, it took me by surprise. Recurring revenue is a game changer. It is a life changer, because although the revenue wasn't really an issue, I don't think I'd realized just how stressful it always was going into my launches, knowing that, I just used up the 6 months of money from the last launch, or the 12 months of money from the last launch. And it always felt really stressful, like all my eggs are in one basket, everything's riding on this. If I don't have a good launch, it's going to be game over. Of course, that's not true. That it's not that black and white. But with a membership, because there's a recurring revenue every single month coming in, and it drops off every month because there are always cancellations. That's the nature of a membership. But I still pretty much know what's coming in. There's no big surprises, like one month it's 8,000 and the next month it's 200. Like there's nothing surprising like that. And it means that I can run my business differently. I can plan my life differently. And when I go to launch, my launches feel completely different, because with the launches, the attitude now is, it'll be great to have a good launch, but if we don't have a great launch, it'll be okay because the membership brings the revenue. And it's been amazing, and I wouldn't have realized that. And then for challenges, the hardest thing of all for me, I didn't anticipate, and I will admit I've really struggled with this. I think I'm just about getting there now, is when I ran a high ticket mentoring program, people would pay £5,000 a month, a year, or 10,000 or something in between, depending on the payment plan. And they showed up to everything, and they got the results, and they didn't cancel. My online program does have a refund policy, but I have a very, very low refund rate. I'm just not used to people saying goodbye. And with a membership, the very nature of monthly membership is, of course, that's the business model. People can leave. Doesn't serve them anymore. Maybe they've signed up to another program and they're getting what they need over there, or they've decided to put their business on pause. And I really struggle just with the psychology of people leaving. And actually at the middle of last year, I'd got myself quite caught up in almost a little bit of a spiral of people are leaving, why are they leaving, am I not giving them what they need, am I not doing a good enough job? Went to a lot of work to do a membership survey. We made a lot of changes in the members with the idea of trying to engage people more. And when I got to the end of the year and I ran my stats, because I've never been much of a stats girl, I have to confess, never been much of a one to look at the actual numbers. I run my business on emotion a lot. Did the stats to discover that month on month, my cancellation rate averaged 4%, which is phenomenal. That when we looked at the number of people logging into the members area in the 3 months leading up to the mid-January, 91% of all of my members had logged into the members area at one point or another. They can only be logging into the members area because they want to look for a recording, find a training, or update their card details. There's no other reason they would go in there. So it really brought home to me that everything's actually working beautifully, and I need to get my mindset okay around saying goodbye gracefully. I always say goodbye gracefully, but I don't always feel graceful about it.
Yes. And I can resonate with that as well, because I had the similar experience. And when they leave, I always just tell myself it wasn't meant to be, even though it's a tough pill to swallow. But that's the kind of like little mantra that I tell myself when somebody leaves the membership site.
Yeah. And the hardest thing is when they're not using it. Because what I find is the people who are using it, who are showing up to calls, who are having the mentoring, coming on the hot seats, watching the trainings, that group don't leave. The people who leave are the ones that are not using it. And I think this is, you probably face the same thing. It's the constant, it's one of my constant preoccupations. What can I do to get people to engage and use it? Because if someone's not using it, they lose touch with the value that's available. 3 or 4 months down the line, they look at their bank statement and they go, why am I paying for this thing I'm not using? And off they go. Yes. And I'm like, no, don't go. I can help you.
I know it is a tough one. Honestly, I know exactly how you feel.
Oh, it's not just me then, it's common membership pain.
It's a common membership pain. Indeed, it is. But you know what? I think at the end of the day, everybody has got their own kind of struggles and their own kind of challenges when it comes to membership. And there will always be a point where people will leave a membership, and that's fine. That is their decision. It's exactly what you said. It is our own mindset about it, and that's what we've got to change. And saying gracefully and feeling gracefully about the fact that maybe we are not the right ones for them anymore. They've moved on. Maybe they've developed. They've grown up themselves as well. And now they've pivoted and they need something else. So I guess it's like you said, we need to set up our own mindset of how we say goodbye to those people. But talk to us about the business kind of models and how people could make that work. How could they make a membership work for them if they really think that a membership is a way to go?
Okay, so there's a number of different ways that your membership can serve your business model. So you've got on one end of the scale, you've got somebody like Carrie. I'll give 3 examples. You've got someone like Carrie Green, Female Entrepreneur Association. Her membership is her core offer. She doesn't offer anything else. She does the occasional retreat, and she sells some planners, but her core revenue stream, everything that her business is about, is that membership, and that's it. So that is where the membership itself is the business model. Then you've got something like me. I sit in between. I've got 2 core products and a small mastermind group. And so I've got my online program for authentic sales conversations, and it feeds in beautifully into my membership because people usually do that sales program. I teach them the sales conversations. They value what I teach, and they decide to join the membership to get ongoing support with client attraction and their own business models and development. And then it works the other way around too, is that when I sell the online program, some people don't feel ready to make the stretch to the larger investment for a course. But when I open the membership, they feel like a lower monthly investment. I can put my toe in the water, see if it's any good. They again get to experience me, my teaching, my style. And when I open up the course for enrollment, those people join. So they both support selling each other. And then typically with the mastermind, I haven't run a mastermind for a few years because I went up. It's something that I've brought back in again because I got excited to do it. And I will expect that that will generally be filled with members who decide that they want to upgrade to work with me in a more closer way. So it supports. And then on the other end of the scale is what I call, and this is quite common too, and it works beautifully, using your membership as a paid nurture sequence or a paid nurture funnel.
Yes.
So instead of having people signing up to your emailing list and you sending them videos, or you're putting out your podcasts and you're keeping people engaged, you actually are getting people to pay you for them to give you their attention. Because if somebody's paying you something every month, they're going to give you more attention than they are to all the free stuff out there. And this can really work beautifully for people whose offering is a bit more high ticket. So I was coaching a client a few days ago who sells high-end weekend retreats, or if your business model is mainly one-to-one work. And it is so much easier to sell somebody a low monthly investment membership, have them get to know you, get comfortable with you, really feel part of your community. When you open up and make, when you then are, whether you're opening up or you've got the option to step up and work with you at a higher level, it's the members who typically step up. Some people with memberships actually call their members community their buyers list, because let's say you've got a mailing list of 10,000 people and 500 of those people are in your membership. It's the ones in the membership that are already buying from you that will buy more from you typically.
Exactly.
And so it's a great, it's a really great way to provide that sort of base level of people warmed up, ready to step up to that next level.
Yeah. Oh, I love how you put it, because, in so many ways, people just think of a membership site as just this kind of thing where you just buy into and you've got to pay monthly for something in return. But it's so much more than that. And I love how you're bringing the community into that, because for me, it's always about the community. And I think in some senses, the community is so much more than it is actually the training sometimes. It's just that kind of, how can I explain it? It's that energy. I love talking about energy, because when you have very much the like-minded people together in a room, or together on a Facebook group, it is the same thing, because it creates that hype and that kind of energy amongst people. And I heard a lovely saying that they say, when the tide rises, all the boats rise with
I
it.
love that. I use that. That saying is in my business mission statement.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. And I love it, because, that is so true in so many ways, but especially when it comes to community, the best way I can describe it is just by using that kind of phrase. And I think that's what's really important. So for those of you who's listening to this podcast or watching this video, you might have been thinking about creating a membership. Maybe it's even one of those things that you were thinking, that's one day something that I want to create. Maybe that day is now. Maybe that day has approached sooner than you wanted to. And it's maybe time to think about creating a membership site, but don't think of it as a membership site per se. Think of it as a community. Like Catherine is saying, that's where the real truth, the real heartfulness comes to life. Because when you come from that kind of sense, oh my gosh, it's going to open up so many doors for you, honestly. And I talk from experience, and Catherine is talking from definitely so much more experience than I have when it comes to memberships. But I really, really like the kind of idea of starting a membership, but starting it with a community. And you might already have some clients, some customers, and you can reach out to them and just start asking them and say, listening, I'm thinking of creating this community. Do you want to get involved? Do you want to come in and see what it's all about? And yeah, that could just be a great starting point. I mean, Catherine, just from your experience, if you could just give a couple of tips, it doesn't have to be a whole list, but is there a couple of tips that you can share with the audience for those who's now thinking like, I definitely want to start a membership? What is the first couple of tips that you can share with them so they can get us started and really get their foot in the door?
I think, like you've just said, I think it's always important for people to get clear on their expectations for their membership. Do they want to come straight out of the gates with 1,000 members? In which case it might be a bit more of a long-term plan. We talked about Carrie Green. She's talked, very openly about the fact that she grew that mailing list for 3 years before she opened and launched. And I was quite established when I did, but I have lots of clients who learn from me who start smaller, and they're happy to start smaller because it's still worth it for them. So I think it's important to get clear on your expectations, look at your reach and your current audience, and see whether what you want to achieve is realistic with the audience you've got. And if your audience is small, I've got clients who've started memberships literally by reaching out one-to-one to people they know and inviting them in, and they've started with 20 to 25 members, and then they're going to build up from there. So that would be one. The other important thing to consider when it comes to memberships, and I just want to emphasize that distinction that you have just made between calling it a membership site and calling it a membership community. There's quite a big difference between those two things. And I loved how you said, I'm thinking of starting this community. Would you like to be part of it? People will say, yes, please. You say, I'm thinking of starting a membership site. They're thinking, do I want something to log into every day? I'm not sure. But the other thing about memberships is to consider also how you're going to sell it. There's two models that are known as like the open membership and the closed membership. And with an open membership, the membership's open, it's available, people can join anytime. But the difficulty of that is that we all know what it's like when you can buy something anytime. You tend to think, oh, there's this thing over there that I'm interested in, and maybe at some point, somewhere down the line, maybe next month or the month after, I might decide that I need it. And with a closed membership, this is when you open for periods of time and then you close enrollment again for periods of time. I do the closed membership model, and I do it partly because this is ironic because I'm a sales expert and I love sales, but I also sort of like the fact that I'm only in sales mode like 2 or 3 times a year myself, and the rest of the time I'm focused on serving the members that I've got. So I open 2 times a year, and I have an open enrollment period that lasts about a week, and then the doors close and it stays closed again for another 6 months. Now that's quite a long gap. I think I can get away with that because my retention rate is high, so my revenue isn't dropping too much. A lot of people do 4 times a year, so they'll do 2 official open enrollments and 2 small enrollment opens, like slightly under the radar, just to their wait list in between, just to top it up. But that's quite an important decision-making process that people go through, as is pricing, because a membership can be a low monthly investment site. Somebody might be charging £10, £20, £25 a month, £50 a month, but your membership could be £100 a month or £250 a month or £500 a month or £1,000 a month. There's no, what makes it a membership is not the price, it's the fact that it's an ongoing subscription that you're part of. And so figuring out the price can also be one of those sort of tricky subjects as well.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, so just quickly recapping those tips again. So the first one is obviously the expectations. What is the expectations of you? What it is that you want to create and develop, which is aligned with who you are in your business. The second one is obviously think about it as a community. So when you invite people in, you will get so much more feedback when you talk about a community, because that's what it is going to be like. And then the third one is selling. How are you going to sell it? Is it going to be an open membership or is it going to be a closed membership? And obviously the difference, as Catherine explained, an open membership, it's always going to be available. People can enroll at any point. And again, I agree with that as well. I'm not very keen on having an open membership. Closed membership, obviously the difference with that is you only open up certain times of the year, and then obviously push the marketing towards that so people can then obviously know that there's a deadline to it, which also helps then with selling your community site.
And I think it also helps create a safe space within the community, because members get settled into their community. They feel very safe to share and be open and vulnerable in the Facebook group. If brand new faces were joining every week, we would lose that. So it's almost like we get a whole load of new members pile in. It all takes a little bit of readjusting because there's new personalities, and then it settles in again for another 6 months, and it just seems to work beautifully.
Yes, no, that's so true. Thank you so much for mentioning that as well. And then lastly, of course, the fourth one is price. So the price is entirely up to you, but you've got to think about the value that you're offering to your community. And you can even do a survey with the community you already have, if you already have a community, and just kind of get an idea of what kind of value range you want to put forth. But it's entirely up to you at the end of the day as to what price you want your community or membership site to be. Oh my gosh, Catherine, this has been a fantastic conversation. I just love the fact that we're going through all of these details, and I'm getting so many tips from you as well, which is amazing. Thank you so much. Now, before we conclude everything and finalize everything, why don't you just tell us about the e-guide that you've got? Because you've got a fantastic e-guide available for the audience, which is absolutely for free. And this is all about creating a business you love. So why don't you just explain to the audience what they can get from this e-guide?
Okay, so this was sort of inspired. I feel really passionate about this idea of creating a genuinely sustainable business. And a genuinely sustainable business is not just a business that works financially on paper. I had one of those. It's a business that you are in love with every single day and that you are not burning out on. And what I made the mistake of doing was following business mentors, doing what they said, not really understanding some of the things I needed to check in with for myself in order to create a business that I could love every day for the next 10, 15 years. And so that ebook covers some of those key sort of points that people need to be considering around their business models, around how to identify the marketing strategies that they're going to feel in flow, that they will actually enjoy doing instead of go and do the washing up or put the laundry on instead. And other, a few other things all around that question of, how do you create a business that you can fall in love with and actually stay in love with over the long term?
Amazing. So for all of you listening now, the link will be below my show notes. So by all means, go down there, go and download this guide. I'm going to have a look as well myself. I'm always intrigued by things like this. So I'm definitely going to go and have a look at it as well. Now, this segues very well into also a quiz that you've got. And I'm really excited about this. It's all about discovering what your natural strengths are. And this quiz is also available. The link is below my show notes. But Catherine, just explain to us a little bit about what they can expect from the quiz and what they can get.
Okay, so the quiz is actually to help you identify your authentic sales style, but it works equally for your marketing, really. You'll get a lot of insights. And what I see is that a lot of people have got a lot of what I call stuff around sales. All the reasons they tell themselves why they're not comfortable with sales and they won't be any good at it. But everybody has got areas where their weaknesses around sales, but they also have the corresponding strengths around sales. And so as just one very small example, one of the 5 profiles is the empath. Now the empath thinks, I can't do sales because I'm an introvert and I don't think that I could lead the conversation. But actually the empath is probably better at sales conversations than any of the other profiles because they have the ability to listen very closely and empathize and pick up on non-verbal signals and pick up on the energy of the situation. And so every profile has these. This is what makes it easy and natural for you. Even if you can't see it right now, you are good at sales, but these are the things that are holding you back. So people who do it usually say it's pretty spooky because it's quite accurate.
Oh my gosh, no, I'm really intrigued. I'm definitely going to go and sign up. I'm going to find out who I am. Oh my gosh, Catherine, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for your time on the podcast. From the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate it. All the tips that you've shared now, for me in particular, have been amazing. And I'm sure the audience, for each and every one of you listening as well, I hope you made a lot of notes in particular. And if you didn't, go back, re-listen to this whole podcast episode again, because you're definitely going to get some tips that you maybe didn't hear about the first time around. But yes, oh my gosh, Catherine, I'd love to keep in contact with you. This is going to be really, really fantastic. Is there any final words that you would like to share with the audience?
Just thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me a chance to come and talk about my favorite subject, which is business and memberships and sales. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.